It's,
This is a Good Friday. Oh, look at that. I went live early. How about that? That's pretty rare. Good to see you, Luther. Good to see you, RJ. Last
yeah,
night I
good
was
morning.
watching the weather report from Omaha, Nebraska, because my son used to be stationed there at that Offutt Air Force Base. They showed a hailstone size of a golf ball, but it looked like a gear from when I had that vision. It looked like a gear from when I was shown how God creates through vibration. And when I saw that hailstone, that thought triggered a memory fragment. I said, Father, you remember when I saw that? Then I realized, of course, he remembers when I saw that. And I got the impression I should write it down and remind people. Luther remembers that. I was laying on the ground going, ampifugal lymphocanosis, trying to explain the gear pattern I saw coming out of the vortex vibration. Yeah, and no clown demons appeared this time either, telling me, watch out.
Yeah, be
I'm like
careful.
a $2 pistol. I know. RJ, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining today. I've got a Bible study that I was going to need help.
Yeah, nothing's changed here. I have literally nothing to complain about, logistically or otherwise.
I'm gonna guess you have a umbrella.
Well, I'm not outdoors, so whether I have one or not, yeah, I
When
have
you need
access.
it, when you need it, you'll have it, right?
I can, yeah, I have access.
I need to move this thing here to a better location. There's that thing. I'm gonna close that. I think this would be better over here. A little bit of the what do they call that? Housekeeping on the show. I
Neat
want
and
to look
tidy.
at pictures. What's this?
Mm.
Something I looked up last night, and then I've X'd this out of the show. There's no room for that in the show. So I guess I typed in when Alan Blaine was called Paco, and I looked it up in Gematria. I don't understand the Gematria, but I did take a screenshot of it because I did it. Anybody have any drizzle whistle connections going on? Because I don't understand it. Then I said this one, but I don't remember if I took a screenshot of that. This is the first picture, the thumbnail you're seeing, or one of them from Mitsubishi. I want people to think of Angkor Wat. It's one round of trees. They found it. How long would it take for the trees to attack the roofs, free up some land to where some other trees could come in and start wrecking the foundation? Well, that's not thousands of years. The buildings would survive one group of trees, like Angkor Wat in Cambodia. That's how long this is what they found on that mountaintop. Nothing. That's the Michu Picchu of 1912. It looks like it was occupied, mud flooded, and then left to the elements for about, I don't know, 150 years, 200 maybe, and then found in 1912. That's that peak of the mountain. They're showing that, I guess it's not really the highest mountain around. That's one of the terraces that they cleaned off. They did a lot of cleaning. I guess the guy that Bingham that found it, there was a trail to it. with ladders and stuff. They say they built it, but I don't know. He kept running into people on the way. Same thing. That's how they found it. This crack, that's separated. That might have been one of the times when the Lord shook the earth. It's also over here, you can see, but remarkably intact. There's the thumbnail. These guys led him to it and found. How long does it take stucco to fall off? Well, about 100 years. And then there's 100 years that we got here. The stucco was still in position and the beautiful stonework was hidden by the stucco because some people just wanted to look cool, man. There's another crack, but that's some amazing stonework of unhewn stones, I think. I got a little bit about how other people ended up in Alamosa. It seems like a Dutch Calvinist Holland Christian Reformed Church in 1893 paid the expenses because one of their members tricked 250 people to come to Alamosa, told them it was going to be a European heaven. But this is, 1893, that's right before the silver market crash. This was the town of Alamosa in 1892. I need to get a better look at that map.
That's 82.
Yep. I said even the wrong century, I think I said. I don't know what I was going to do with that. I thought I'd use it as a thumbnail, but kind of provocative. So here's the San Juan Basin. Here's Alamosa, where up here. We live on this side of the river, the Rio Grande, the Rio Bravo. Looks like Pagosa Springs was a good thing, but so there's all those. Yeah, other people.
Basement you're talking, that's the part of the water rights, or
this is kind of. Nobody lives here anymore. It's a desert. It would need to be treated like the people who lived where they had the Nazca lines and they had those wells because our aquifers and stuff, we have the water. It's how to get it and how to use it wisely. Since it is a desert and a high desert, freezing cold in the winter, and nice for just 8 months of the year. Is it nice? It's cold for 4 months, and I want to stay away from the 666. I'm over here, but I'm going to be in all this area. There are so many things. This is where the people died last. These were the last Indians that died. They were hiding here. When they finally found the last people hiding, they were in this area that's on the map right now. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't even know what we're talking about. Yeah. So they don't study organic cigarettes anymore for, are they healthy? They study it for, do people believe they're more healthy? With the argument being, of course, they're not, because, regular tobacco contains nicotine. And then they try to defeat the argument that simply because hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, ammonia, lead, benzene, and these other things are added to cigarettes, does that convince people that it's a healthy alternative if they don't have those in there? Well, what they're discovering now is that tobacco leaves contain some radioactive materials that come from the soil. So if you're smoking cigarettes, even though you're not getting the hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, you're still getting some radioactive material, and you shouldn't smoke even organic tobacco. I disagree. Go ahead, RJ. I know you're chomping at the
Well,
bit.
yeah, whether you have the added ingredients to whatever, tobacco, food, and we're at a time where what hasn't been contaminated, the water, the air, the soil, to, to say
Yeah, you
it's
said last
fully
week.
organic, back to Mother Earth type scenario.
Yeah, what was
And
your genius thing last week? The contamination is part of the indoctrination. That's a good one.
absolutely, or I mean,
Absolutely is right.
how can it not be intertwined?
Yeah, they do it. That's interesting. You know, nicotine and the nicotoids, the honeybees. Nicotine is one of the sacred herbs. It's like THC and marijuana. They're we got to get into this Bible study, RJ. But first, I kind of teased with, you know, what is there such a thing as, are there holocausts or is there the Holocaust? You know, look, there's a sign that this boy is marked as a Jewish person. And it seems, especially in the academic world where I live, it's the Holocaust means this. They,
Genocide.
and that's the main thing. But for years, people are going like, how come they didn't talk about it until the late 50s? And how there are certain people that were all about, how did you guess that many? Those are legitimate questions. When we realize pretty much in Europe and the United States is where it's enforced to believe that this was the worst genocide, Holocaust type thing. Like this is a bone crushing machine. I believe there's some pretty wicked things going on. Kind of looks like a cement mixer, but I don't know. A lot of burned people. I mean, the Russians killed 1 million Germans instead of like turning them loose at the end of the war. We bombed Dresden and we killed civilians in Tokyo, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This war was, as they say, hell. RJ, go ahead.
Well, yeah, if you can imagine hell on earth, yeah, there's a number of identifiable scenarios that certainly were real enough.
Yeah, nobody wants to get bombed into smithereens, but nobody wants to get lied to about, it's like, it does seem you make a big deal about it, but you ignore what they call the Holodomor for the Slavic people. They killed 40 million, starved them to death. There's no good answers. I mean, Wernher von Braun, the Nazi boy who came to America, built those missiles with slave labor. It wasn't only the Jewish people, it was a lot of people. And I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be the guy, RJ, that, in the last couple of months has like realized, wow, in my whole ministry, I've made a point of avoiding the fact I don't want to be like the Ku Klux Klan, but I don't like the Roman Catholic religion as much as the Ku Klux Klan didn't. But I'm the guy that's all about it. Every February isn't it's Black Hidden History Month to me, not Black History Month. And I've got a video pulled up. Maybe I should show that if I can find it real quick about the boule. You ever heard of the boule? This isn't it. What was this one?
Judaism, because they know that Israel is a haven for pedophiles. So they're converting to Judaism. This is documented. And then they're moving to Israel where they are protected.
There's an article, I've been reading it this morning. I think it's on your your Substack, Israel's History of Pedophilia. Now, obviously, the
Yeah.
moment you say a statement like that, people are like, oh, this has got to be anti-Semitism and everything. We've got to be careful about that, because obviously we see what's happening in America, and we must not allow that to happen, where literally students are being, arrested on the street and attempts to deport them under this guise of anti-Semitism, simply because they're protesting genocide. But talk to us about this article, what you're talking about, Israel's History of Pedophilia, because I think this all links up with the whole kind of Mossad, Epstein, and how many people are compromised.
It's like my mom just going on and on.
Right? Talk to
A
us.
rant?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you only have to look, as I mentioned at the end of the article, which, as I said, was actually published in Israel Hayom. This was the one that I most recently published. I'd also written about Israel being a haven for pedophiles previously, and I included that in a link in the article that covered the Israel Hayom investigation.
That's not the one. So that's like one of those ones, but that's not the one about the other one. This isn't that one either.
Canyon landfill, alleging the operators have failed to quell the smell. This year, the State Department of Toxic Substances found multiple violations at Chiquita Canyon. And while the lawsuit says the owners, Waste Connections, Inc., have taken steps to remain in compliance with EPA guidelines, like installing gas extraction wells, the county says it's not enough, and they're seeking an injunction to force the owners to fully stop the smell.
My whole takeaway on this, RJ, was to ask you that, do you think it's funny that we need these children and everybody out there protesting that, like, hey man, the landfill in our expensive neighborhood behind us has been burning for 3 years, and you want me to believe we can go to Mars, but we can't put out the fire in the landfill for 3 years? Go, RJ, and they'll find that other one.
Well, like I've said a number of times, and I pray about it, if not daily, but frequent enough. It's not only what we have done and exposed the youth to, influencing, but in particular, during their days of innocence, which, that's early times. That before they, just shaping the mind, to however it ends up, it's a process, and like I said, I don't feel anyone is immune to it,
right?
But,
right. I mean, everybody gets.
Everyone's required to go through. That doesn't mean there's, everybody's going to end up the same, either by any means. But
they're going to all end up loving the globe. I mean, name a country, name a movie, name a child that didn't. It's like, hey, look, there's the globe. I mean, I don't remember the first time I saw a globe.
Yeah.
Here's this other one I wanted to show.
It's a wonder. It's a wonder.
COVID is not exactly bitter, but as she recalls her teenage years after the arrest and pregnancy, she hovers between resentment and sadness and bewilderment at the way she was treated. They just dropped me.
This is the girl in the center is the first girl that told in Montgomery, Alabama, where Martin Luther King Jr. was the 26-year-old fresh out of college with a PhD given to him because he was a boule. That's what this guy says. He's a boule. He's a black Freemason. This girl told a honky bus driver, no, I'm not moving. I am not moving. I'm tired of moving all the time. And she got a little groundswell of support. They started supporting her. We're going to make a big deal out of this. And then she got pregnant. So Rosa Parks, 42-year-old, married, stable, she was an activist, but they just portrayed her as a seamstress. She took over as the first Black person. Well, you've probably heard of Rosa Parks.
I have.
These guys did it.
All about inclusion. And did that inclusion benefit the future conditions of Negroes overall?
I'm just in love.
An important characteristic about this era that must not be overlooked are the conditions between the North and the South.
You know, if you ever, but during when they weren't lynching people and fighting it, if you ever were looking for some high class music and dancing, you could just find it right here at the Ogden. I mean,
Negroes in the North may get harassed by the police and experience their own unique forms of Northern racism, but it still wasn't as bad as it was in the South, where they were lynching pregnant women and burning down churches. The calcified Confederates were still playing Klan games. Even in the 60s, they were still up to their pyromelanin deficient shenanigans. This was a Deep South phenomenon. Most of these significant events of the Civil Rights.
Yeah, I've seen some symbolized badges that some of them cone heads were wearing there.
they look pretty weird, didn't they?
Being neither Southern nor urban.
We got to realize all of those buildings are mysterious, run-on steam, like Christian Liberty Academy where I worked. And we were given a $2 million. Here's your homeschool, and they were given this.
Unofficially, the first landmark of this era took place in Topeka, Kansas, in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education in 1951. The Browns were represented by the NAACP and their chief counsel, Prince Hall Freemason, and Special Negro, Thurgood Marshall.
Obama was called a special Negro by Joe Biden. Said we should back him. He's a special Negro. He's articulate.
This land grant particularly targeted the southern states where segregation was heavily enforced.
So this was the normalization of the schools, RJ.
Where there's a blue dot, or
that's for the normalization of the Black people. This is where they opened up state schools that were going to allow Black people to learn the trades, man.
Okay.
This is where my uncle was working, Pete Banker, when he was on a team in 58 when they developed the binder for chewable vitamins. That's how he ended up as the dean of the pharmacology college at Iowa State. He golfed with Hayden Fox. I kid you not. That's some crazy. And the thing is, seemed like he was super smart.
Reverse the separate but equal doctrine.
As you know, the Supreme Court of the United States has decided that separate public educational facilities.
It didn't work, but the Black people backed it, and then they got Rosa Parks, but she wasn't first. It was this girl. Somehow, like the Republicans and Democrats have to be in on it. There is a group out there like Al Sharpton's. It's crazy world.
I'm about fucked up off Marcus Luther Garvey right now, bro. I gotta reevaluate the whole movement. These niggas got Marcus Luther Garvey involved, nigga. I want to know the Marcus Luther Garvey tapes, my nigga. I know somebody.
I don't think we should use the N-word. I'm even uncomfortable listening to this.
Got them.
I'm sure he didn't do it alone. Who is this guy?
Marginalized communities. So it was about gay people or women or minorities. It wasn't just about Black people with Rustin. So the question is, where did Rustin's influence in the South come from? Continuing, He also argued that the African American community was threatened by the appeal of identity politics, particularly the rise of Black power. He thought this position was a fantasy of.
They had to rise up. But anyway, RJ, there's that, there's this. I mean, right need another. That's pretty bad. You gotta start slow.
A baton twirler, huh?
Yeah. You know, this was that they eventually they took away the swords and everything from the kung fu, the Shaolin priests, and so they learned how to fight with bow staffs and nunchucks. And so then they said, okay, you can't have bow staffs anymore either, because these guys were kicking ass 4 or 5, you know, with the soldiers that had swords. Enough of that. RJ, let's look at this.
So then you're forced to show up at a knife fight with a
bow staff.
No, with a gun. You know, great.
Well, you're not allowed to have. People are going to not be able to carry guns like in Colorado. People just walk around with guns on their. It's like the cowboys. You can wear a gun anywhere you want, practically. So here's Revelation 10:11. You must prophesy again. I think that is when the Lord was talking, saying, okay, that's us in the short season about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. Because this is well after, here's a message to these churches in Asia. It's almost halfway through the book. And then we're going, now you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, and tongues. So these peoples tie into only Acts 7, and it's the Gentiles declaring who are the peoples, plural, of Israel. And we realize that the true gospel was preached to Abraham. In the context, we'll see, go take that scroll from that angel who's standing on the sea and the land. So he did. And I told him, give me the little scroll. Take it and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. I took the little scroll from the hand of the angel and ate it. It was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter, and I was told, you must again prophesy about this. Nations, peoples, languages, and kings. And it was that Revelation 4:4. How's that tie in? We're going to look at who and what does this represent? Well, this is around the throne, 24 thrones, seated on the thrones, 24 elders clothed in white garments, tellurides. Has anybody ever seen a telluride that has a little gold trapped in it? And the only way that they could get it out was in the 1880s and 90s. They said, wow, with cyanide, we can get it out. The golden crowns that are on their heads. It's the lightning. It's the flashes of thunder. I'm just showing the verses before we're going to have to go back over. Every creature which in heaven, upon the earth, under the earth, on the sea is, and everything. It said, well, you know what? Look at this. They add that thing again about it's to the one sitting on the throne and to the Lamb. They do that to confuse it when there is no, it is and should, have been. To him be the glory, the honor from age to age, blessing and honor to the Lamb on the throne and where he's sitting, saying, I heard them, everyone under the sea, every creature under heaven and earth, giving praise to the Lamb, not to the Lamb and the one sitting. That's not the way I think we should read it. That's why I've been presenting it this way. Then the kings of the earth, again, staying in Revelation, RJ, I know you got your thinking cap on. Then everyone, kings of the earth, rulers, generals, wealthy power, every slave and free person, all hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountain. So all of everybody, but not, well, this is a pretty good mix of, but I'm going to leave you hanging on that one. Here's that 10:7 again. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he begins to sound his trumpet, what happens? The mystery of God will be fulfilled as he proclaimed to his servants, the prophet. And that's when he said, go take that small scroll that, lies open in the hand of the angel. He's the one who did that seventh. Here's the mystery. And then he's standing there. He goes like, give me that. Let me have that scroll. Apparently, I'm supposed to eat it. Isn't that interesting? So look at this, RJ, and when we see these tongues now, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wait a minute. I thought it was going to be, well, the ethne. I knew that this was going to, it's tying into that, how it's all the nations and the people and tongues. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's that speaking in tongues thing. That's the whole 15 verses where the Gentiles ended up speaking in new tongues with the same sign as the Hebrews had, that when Peter, and he had six, not the mouth of two or three witnesses, but six witnesses, and he goes, and they all kind of go, huh, that's the same thing that happened to us. So that's a pretty good sign that prophecy that was for them. And then it says afterwards, there's this other prophecies for another time, for other nations and tongues. You got anything on that?
What to
You
add.
usually keep going, right?
Sure.
Okay, I got some more stuff going here. But that's kind of what I was thinking here. So I got these Gentiles and the people. Revelation 10:11. Again, prophesy. So there's pretty much no doubt about that, right? Once more, further, on the other hand, we had the book of Revelation that was making sense to them. Everybody alive at that time when they're reading it are going like, okay, so I feel like, you feel like we're in the sixth or seventh seal or trumpet? Yeah, I got it. Well, anyway, we'll know because the mystery will be revealed. And all of that with the two, witnesses dying in the street and everything. It's kind of like, well, I'm glad that's over. We don't know who they were, but we know that on the other hand, here's a new prophecy for us. One mother, another one, because it's necessary. That day, that looks like, what else is necessary? Well, a John the Baptist. These things are necessary. And if we go down, it should show Acts 15. There's something necessary there. Huh. They were saying it's necessary to circumcise your children, but because I know in Acts 15,
lists 4 things.
right, and one of them is necessary. So I must necessarily go. It's the second time that they read it, because the first time they read it, they go like, "This is good." Now, the more they thought about it, then they were going to send a letter back to the Gentiles saying it's stupid. If you circumcise and follow the law like the Judaizers want, you're cut off from Christ. You've unsettled your minds. They've gone over it. Oh, they called them requirements. But so is it only the English Standard Version that called it necessary? Here, Berean Literal calls it necessary. KJV calls it necessary. And I'm fluent KJV. That's all there was until I was like 20. And it took me 2 years to work up my nerve to go to the New King James. Essential. So anyway, I like the idea of it being a requirement. What else is required? Well, huh? I don't think you need a whole new word for that. Usually when you come down here and go, it's like this, okay. So it's a compound word of the word that we looked at earlier for the necessity, the compulsion, it's necessary. And so it's kind of like a double thing, on the basis of Jesus rose from the dead. We're moving on to a new situation here. And here are 4 necessary things. Let's face it. Oh, I can't get away from that. Those guys are the ones that chose Barabbas, RJ. And we're going to act like we got the dispensationalists, praying for them every day, praying for their fake Jerusalem and acting like it's just super normal. But that's pretty weird when you break it down.
Yeah, it's like the people involved that claim, to be Jewish, and I don't know how they have the genetics that
see that
what ought to be. Again, this is a time of the grand finale of deception, and everyone in one way is involved, whether they you realize it or not, what's happening. But the time has come.
right. There's no going back. So Revelation 10, you must prophesy again to the nations, the language, the kings. There's that going on. Now, around the throne were 24 elders. So here's another kind of a step into a different world. This is where the dispensationalists believe the rapture takes place in Revelation 4. So he spoke to the 7 churches of Asia, and now in Revelation 4, they teach he saw a door standing open, and the first voice, which I heard speaking to me like a trumpet, said, "Come up here." And he means that was the 7th seal, that was the mystery sign. Come up here, and I'll show you what's going to take place after this. I think that is leading up to, you know, when in 10 he goes, here's the new revelation, but here's what's going on. He was in the spirit, behold the throne in heaven, one seated on the throne. Like I showed earlier how they try to add that in there, that there's two. At once I was in the spirit, and he who sat there had appearance of jasper, carnelian, and around the throne a rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones. That's 12 like nerves that we have that are paired, that surround your pineal gland, that are in the hottest place in your head. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and seated on the thrones were 24 elders clothed in white garments. This is a big deal because they're linen made from the ground. They have golden crowns on their head. From the throne came flashes of lightning and rumblings. Those are going to happen automatically as we are electric vortex batteries. From the throne came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder. Before the throne were burning 7 torches of fire, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne, there was a great sea of glass like crystal. Around the throne, on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures. They describe them, full of eyes, one like a lion, an ox, the other living creatures, one the face of a man, 4th looks like an eagle in flight. Of the 4, each had 6 wings. But here's the big takeaway. They're so close to God. They're living in that light. And when the people that they connect with are one, they go, holy, holy, holy is Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Now, we can go back here. We know who that is. There's no doubt that he's the image of the invisible God. All things were created through him and for him. He's before all things. This is what they're teaching the Gentiles, because they're the ones that are kind of like, hey, you're in on this now. And in him, all things hold together. That's pretty good, you know, evidence that, as Josh McDowell said when I was a teenager, evidence that demands a verdict. That was a powerful book. Got anything, RJ?
Well, it's other than it's awfully similar description that you read in Ezekiel in a way.
Yeah, right. The whole wheel inside a wheel, except Ezekiel was looking into a mirror darkly. You know, he could.
And I think, yeah, and it's also like the firmament and the throne above. Right. You know, the reality of, you know, the spiritual world, and which obviously has some of its own physics. Again, it's not of this world, but it's part of the creation. Oh yeah.
The whole metal dome thing was that 11 when I looked around the throne, the living creatures, elders. Here's that thing. Many angels numbering myriads and myriads and thousands of thousands. Yet people like the preterists, the full preterists, and still use the term preterist while they wait for the millennium. You know, they say, does God only own the cattle on 1,000 years? It can't simply mean 1,000 years. Well, there's words for thousands, and there's words for myriads, and there's words for many. The one word they use in Revelation 20 a number of times can only mean 1,000. It means 10 times 10 times 10 for all of that Greek Roman sacred math and what the Greeks used and the Hebrews used for measuring. If you want to measure something, you don't just give a random number. So that is kind of the one. Verse 13, all creatures in heaven, on earth, under the earth, and in the sea, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing, honor, and glory forever and ever. To him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. That was my problem, because that makes it sound like there's two of them, one sitting on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever. Is that a fair interpretation? When we
it's similar to the ending of the Lord's Prayer that the Catholics don't use it, but kingdom, power, glory type. It's slightly different, but similar.
Yeah,
yeah, because it's some triune, again, don't know exactly, but yeah, there's three things mentioned.
Okay, so here is that. Let's look at. Let's go ahead and start in chapter 10, RJ, if you want to do some reading here. And we'll take it down here. Just go through this whole thing because it kind of ends with a crescendo.
Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow above his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like pillars of fire. He held in his hand a small scroll, which lay open. He placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. Then he cried out in a loud voice, like the roar of a lion. And when he cried out, the seven thunders sounded their voices. When the seven thunders had spoken, I was about to put it in writing, but I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up what the seven thunders have said, and do not write it down. Then the angel I had seen standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to heaven, and he swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and everything in it, the earth and everything in it, and the sea and everything in it, there will be no more delay. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he begins to sound his trumpet, the mystery of God will be fulfilled, just as he proclaimed to his servants the prophets. Then the voice that I had heard from heaven spoke to me again, saying, go take the small scroll that lies open in the hand of the angel standing on the sea and on the land. And I went to the angel and said, give me the small scroll. Take it and eat it, he said. It will make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey. So I took the small scroll from the angel's hand and ate it, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach turned bitter. And they told me, you must prophesy again about many peoples and nations and tongues and kings.
So I wonder if he did prophesy again. Well, in that vision, he was given a measuring rod like a staff. Go and measure the temple of God and the altar, count the number of worshipers there, but exclude the courtyard outside the temple. Do not measure it because it has been given over to ethne, to the Gentiles, and they will trample the holy city. So here's that 1,260 days. They empowered the two witnesses. This happened, before that prophesy to us, the two olive trees, the two lampstands, They had the power to shut the sky, RJ. I don't see I can see a deceptions now where people might seem like they can shut the sky, but first they'd have to admit they're not going to Mars. So speculation about the two witnesses, that is what it is right now. We don't know. We know that they lived through a time the beast that comes up from the abyss will wage war against them, will overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lay in the street that figuratively is called Sodom and Egypt. And we know they mean Jerusalem because that is where Lord was crucified. The 3.5 days they saw their body, not letting them go in the tomb, gloating over them, sending Christmas presents, it sounds like. The witnesses heard it, come up here. So again, that's the same phrase where they said it was the rapture in chapter 4. And they went up to heaven in a cloud as their enemies watched them. And in that hour was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city collapsed. 7,000 were killed in the quake. The rest were terrified and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, the third is coming shortly. Then the seventh angel sounded his trumpet. Loud voices called out, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord Christ. He will reign forever and ever." And that's when these guys do their thing again. The 24 elders who sit on their thrones before God fell on their faces, worshiping God. So this is a big deal, RJ, because they knew that was the seventh seal. The nations are enraged. Jerusalem, that Sodom, Egypt, their wrath has come. Their time has come to judge the dead, reward the servants. And these guys, there's more than Noah's flood. Armageddon was the mud flood. It was coming like a flood. Put in your sickle and reap and all of that, RJ, because that's what leads to this. And why don't we wrap it up and we'll pick this up later because it's been about an hour and I've got a busy, busy day. But what they were looking for is this. You want, it's kind of a long part, RJ, but I think you can do it if you want. Oh, he had to take a phone call. I'll do it. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed in the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and crying out in pain and agony, giving birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, a huge red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 royal crowns on his head. His tail swept 1/3 of the stars from the sky, hurling them to heaven. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, ready to devour her child as soon as she gave birth. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all nations with an iron scepter. But her child was caught up to God, to his throne, and the woman fled to the wilderness where God had prepared a place for her to be nourished for 1,260 days. Then a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back. But the dragon was not strong enough, and no longer was any place found in heaven for him and his angels. And the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, and Satan. That's the language used in Revelation 20 when Satan is thrown into the pit, the abyss, while the beast and the false prophet were thrown in chapter 19 into the lake of fire, and Satan joins him shortly. There was a loud voice saying, "Now has come salvation and power, kingdom of God, authority of Christ, for the accuser of brothers has been thrown down, he who accuses them day and night, fathers of lie, before God. They've conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives so as to shy away from death. They were faithful to the end. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them." Well, they celebrate when a person comes back to the Lord. "But woe to the earth and the sea, with great fury the devil has come down to you, knowing he has only a short time." You want to finish it off, RJ?
Sure. 13 here. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly from the presence of the serpent to her place in the wilderness, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away in the torrent. But the earth helped the woman and opened its mouth to swallow up the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. And the dragon was enraged at the woman and went to make war with the rest of her children who kept the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea.
Okay, so here's these times, the lion, the beast, the throne, the head appeared, who is like the beast, 42 months. This is where we have to go with these scriptures. This is, we know that there's organic. We can treat our body as a temple. In 27, oh no, there's cuts in the staff now. What are we going to do? We won't be prepared for these summer storms. Well, newsflash, it took 3 days to get water to the Superdome, and they knew where the Superdome was. They're always unprepared, understaffed, uninformed, because that is what they do. They've contaminated the food, the water, the air. They've given us a very narrow road, it seems, RJ, but what can we do? We're going to stay on it.
Yeah, the path where his victory is ours. So
I've got this meeting at 10 o'clock where I filed an official complaint for religious discrimination, and they basically funded my money, admitted they lied, but then acted like, well, I'm done. I'm like, wait, what about the official complaint? You lied to me for over a year and a half. This is real discrimination, and they're caught red-handed, and their modus operandi is to just hope it goes away and act like, well, sorry, we overcharged you and lied to you and caused you a lot of, threatened to kick you out. I got to approach this as,
as far as pursuing some sort of compensation for the pain and suffering, and if that means, some people end up, I don't know, changing career, but at least losing their jobs over, not so much the why, but how you were treated, the excuse why it happened, the the repercussions of those involved putting you through it, yeah, you may want to revisit that. And
I need to remind them and tell them that you religiously discriminated against me because you're all about militant lesbianism. And that's proven. You tell people happy zombie Jesus Day, and if they don't accept their joking, you're just the problem. Well, nobody jokes about other religions like that. And nobody jokes about, I hope everybody had a happy, what is the gay month, whatever the gay month is, and it didn't die of AIDS, or something like that, So anyway, I am busy, and it is going to happen because the Lord has me here in Alamosa. And I want people to know, I'm not saying you have to move to Alamosa. This is a high, cold place, but there is a lot of Rocky Mountains. And there is a lot of desert around rivers and streams that can be harvested. Like the people that lived the longest in the past were people who adapted to living in the desert in kind of rough conditions. They were warned, go let the mountains follow us and all of that. Wrap it up, RJ, would you?
Yeah, it's the major, weekend holiday for Christians, that's where the significance of the salvation was wrought. And yeah, it's a traditional celebration, do it in whatever way, whatever we do, we want it to be pleasing in the sight of the Lord. So yeah, remain safe and informed, and it's one day at a time. So,
because this is real, right, RJ? This is real. What you're living through now is not a downloaded app like San Luis Fault or something, a game where you kill people. There are people out there waiting to shoot and kill people and eat and think, that's how I'm prepared. But the truth is much more difficult, but it's on. The storm that was promised is here. Chemtrails much. This is real. The mud flood was Armageddon. The golden age is past, and the veil is being lifted, and we're on a narrow road that's being warned. They added 1,000 years to history. They want you to fight each other, but it's always going to be the flat earth nation with the golden age past. That's why you have to get your mind around that orphan train thing was real. This is a reset. It's a cover-up. It's 1940, white people ruled this country and black people had to have their own baseball leagues. They couldn't be in movies with white people. And we're covering that up now, acting like everything's normal. It's not normal. It's messed up weird. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else because we know we're called, chosen, predestined, and most importantly, we're legally adopted into the family of God because we've been born again and given the ears to hear. They never will understand. They will want to kill you in the end. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamain. Adios, amigos. Hasta luego.